the introductions. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining us today. My name is Helen Margaret Nasser, and I'm the director of the Student Union and Intercultural Center at Kingsborough Community College. And something that we've tried to really instill in our programming through the Student Union and Intercultural Center is to connect our students to amazing work being done in our community. A lot of times you might hear about pressing issues and concerns, and you're just presented with the problem and not really presented with solutions or how you can be involved in taking action. So we're really fortunate to be joined by our friends here from Community Voices Heard. We've got Mr. Greg Halzen here and Velita Brown. And I will, oh, I lost your bios, 1 second. I'll just quickly introduce them. So Greg Hausen has started working with Community Voices Heard in May 2019 and has built with NYCHA residents to win their vision for public housing. This is a vision he sees as essential for all New Yorkers to be healthy and to thrive, including himself and his family. Prior to joining CVH, he started organizing in 2015 through an apprentice year with ANHD's Center for Community Leadership, and his organizing at Faith in NY, PICO, focused on leadership development in their immigrant justice program. He has arrived in NYC to teach dual language English-Spanish classrooms, and after 7 years of teaching, he followed his anger about racial injustice into organizing work to fight for immigrant family dignity, including his own. After 3 years with Faith in NY, he spent a year as primary caregiver for foster children and supporting anti-racism Faith Coalition efforts. He was born and raised in New Mexico and also Maryland. He has degrees in economics and psychology from Elon University, bilingual education from Columbia University, and worked for 2 years on school integration efforts in Bulgaria with the US Peace Corps. Thank you, Greg, for joining us today. We're also joined by Velita Brown, who is an organizer at Community Voices Heard, one of the largest Black and Brown-led grassroots organizations in New York State. She has led and hosted trainings around power, self-interest, and political education while recruiting and developing members to become strong community leaders to fight on different issues of social justice. A former high school math teacher and 2016 Teach for America Greater New Orleans alumnus, Velita cares deeply about the underlying systemic issues that plague Black and Brown communities. Velita holds a bachelor's degree from Washington University in St. Louis in marketing and international business with a minor in Spanish, and is a 2018 LEE Community Organizing Fellowship alumnus. Thank you both, Greg and Velita, for joining us today, and we're really excited to hear what you have to share with us.
Thank you for the introduction, Ms. Nasser, and thank you all for joining in this afternoon. So it would be great. We do have a group that's, I think, appropriate size where we could touch base with each of you, hear a little bit about where you're coming from into today's call. So I did want to start off with just hearing around the virtual room here, your name, where you live, and what you like to do for fun. So I'll start. My name is Greg Hausen, like Ms. Nasser said, and I live in the Bronx, and on Mosholo Parkway, and is my neighborhood. And I really enjoy picnics every weekend, sitting outside and eating food. And I'll pass it on to Bart Fraser.
I'm glad you called me next because I wanted to go next. My name is Bart Fraser. I am a freshman at Kingsborough. I haven't been in college since I was 28, which was my last attempt. I attempted college 4 times in 10 years, and I look forward to being a part of things like this. For fun, I used to play video games, but I haven't played video games in 2 months because I've been studying. That's really about it.
Thank you. Pass it on to Imani Scott.
Hi, my name is Imani, and I am I live in Brooklyn. And for fun, I like to work out. I'm a gym fanatic.
Great.
Majoring in criminal justice and going into law enforcement soon.
Okay. Thank you. Pass it on to Anna. Is it a little mock?
Hello, my name is Anna Kiselormek. I live in Brooklyn. I have been in Kingsborough like for 3 years because when I came, I didn't speak nice English, so I have to do Kelly program next. I did a CLIP program, and now this is my third semester in Kingsborough. I'm majoring in liberal arts English concentration with the idea to develop my English because it's not my first language.
Great.
And for fun, I just like to spend time with my kid. I just have one 2 years old baby boy.
Great. Thank you. And I'll pass it on to Svetlana. Svetlana, I don't actually have all of your last name on there, but, on the screen, but can you introduce yourself? Svetlana, can you hear us?
Hi, my name is Svetlana. Short name is Lana. It's my second semester in Kingsborough. I live in Brooklyn. Now I studied before law in my native country in Belarus, and I try take a new profession in this country. I like swimming.
And for fun?
I like swimming.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll pass it on to Laurie Paluso.
Hi, this is my first year at Kingsborough. I also live in Brooklyn, and for fun, I like to go on walks and make ceramics.
Thank you. I'll pass it on to Yolanda Romero.
Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Well, my name is Yolanda Romero. I live in Staten Island, and this is my second time going back to Kingsborough. I started a few years ago. I got married, and since my husband went active duty, we ended up in another state. We recently came back home to New York, and I'm back, and I'm majoring in criminal justice. And for fun, we like to just go out and shop. Thank
Welcome
you.
back. Thank you. Afisa Khan.
Hi, my name is Afiza. This is my second year in Kingsborough. I'm majoring in criminal justice, and for fun, I guess I like taking naps.
Right on. Thank you. I'll pass it on to Jason Leggett.
Hi, this is Professor Leggett. It's really loud where I'm at right now. I'm in Manhattan. And for fun, I like to play guitar.
Great. Thanks. And Azina, I don't actually see the full last name. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aziana Bergenhunt, but you can call me Ozzy for short. I've been attending Kingsborough for almost a year now, and my major is criminal justice. And for fun, I just like to play with my dog Buddy.
Great.
That's it.
Thank you. Go to Anthony Sacco.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, my name is Anthony Sacco. I am 24 years old, and I'm currently a student at Kingsborough. And I like working out Monday through Saturday. So yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Milena Mendes. Can you hear us, Milena? You're on mute. We're not able to hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. Go ahead. we're just introducing ourselves, where you
Oh.
live, and what you do for fun.
Oh, well, sorry. I'm at work right now, but I'm a new student actually here at Kingsborough. I'm a criminal justice major. I took some time off after I graduated high school. But I'm just happy to be back and trying to get my degree in criminal justice.
And for fun, what do you do?
What do I do for fun?
Yeah.
Makeup, I guess. I like to do my makeup, I
Yeah.
guess.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
And let's see. Also here is Chinwe. Chinwe Shek.
Yes.
Mhm.
Hello, I'm Chunwei, and I live in Brooklyn, and this is my second year in Kingsborough. And for fun, I love playing video games. Okay. Thank you.
Great. Pass it to Revelin Rivera. You're on mute. If you can hear us, Revelin.
Hi guys, my name is Raybelin Rivera. I live in Brooklyn, New York. This is my second year in Kingsborough. And for fun, I like to play volleyball.
Great. Thank you. Ashley Gomez.
Hi guys, my name is Ashley Gomez. I live in Brooklyn. This is my last semester at Kingsborough in my first year. I will be getting my associate's degree in about 2 months now. And for fun, I like to go to cycling classes.
Great. And Ashura Jones, part of your last name, Ashura.
Hi, my name is Ashura. I'm finishing up my first year at Kingsborough. My major is criminal justice, and for fun, I like to hang out with my friends.
Great. And do not want to miss Miss Frances Samuel. She's on the call. Here we go.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I work with Helen Nasser here at Kingsborough as her assistant, as well as in the Career Center and with Perkins. So I'm around the campus doing quite a few things. I live here in Brooklyn, born, raised. Only time I ever left was to go on vacation and go away to college. What I like to do for fun, walking, watching TikTok videos, and harassing my 4-year-old nephew.
Mm-hmm. That sounds good. Pass it back to Helen Margaret. Introduce yourself. Maybe everybody knows you, but go ahead. Ms. Nasser.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Hi, everyone. I'm Helen Margaret Nasser, and you can call me Helen. I am, as you know, I work at Kingsborough, and I love working with students. I'm so happy to see so many of you here today. What I like to do for fun, I like to cook new recipes and try new things, and I like to take long walks.
Oh well, I love sorry, but I really love trying new recipes too.
Yeah, connecting there. And Velita, do you want to share your thing for fun? Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. So hi guys, again, I'm Velita. I live in Harlem, and I enjoy, I like playing the guitar, and I also like playing tennis.
I didn't know that about you, Velita, that you play guitar. That's good. Good to learn. That's good. And with that, I am passing it to you for our next part of our agenda here.
Great. So are we going to, Greg, are we putting up the PowerPoint now?
Sure. Yeah, I'll be glad to do that. Yep.
Perfect. All
Oops. There we
Yeah,
go.
actually, you know what? We can hold off on that, Greg, because I forgot about the first part. Again, welcome. Thanks for having us. And yeah, so we are organizers. We work with an organization called Community Voices Heard. And I'll get into a little bit about what we do in just a moment, but I just kind of want to hear from you guys a little bit more about some of your experiences. So what we do is we actually organize people to create change in their communities. And I want to know, like, from you all, have there been moments where you confronted community leaders for a change that you wanted to see in your communities? Or maybe has there been a moment where you wanted to change something, but you didn't have the power to actually change that thing that you wanted to see different in your community? Either way, I would just love to hear a little bit about some of you guys' experiences around that before we kind of dive into some of the campaigns that we have going on and the work that we're doing at CDH. So yeah, anybody can jump in.
Yeah, this is Bart. I'm not sure if it's change in my community as much as it is change generally around the entire United States. But I did one time engage a guy that was running for council, city council, where I was living, and I was starting to become not involved with politics, but engage those people because they had a tendency to pop up 2 months before the election. So I got tired of it. A guy rang my bell and he probably didn't know I was going to walk with him for 4 blocks questioning him. And I questioned him and I actually volunteered in his campaign. And I was driving bus for New York City Transit. So I'm a union employee and, fair wages and stuff. It's a union. When I got there, he started talking against the union. So he obviously didn't know who he had volunteering for him. He didn't know his community. So my issue that I'm having that I want to go into law is that I want to be able to help those who need help, like these protesters who are out speaking their voices and they're making stupid laws like, oh, 3 people assemble. That's as much you can have for a protest. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't show you the full spectrum of the people that are angry at something. So when they jail these people, they need defense. They need someone to represent them. I feel like that's the first thing I'm going to do. The second thing is just generally challenge all the stuff they have lined up and in place across the U.S. That's it's unfair, obviously unfair, but because they're higher up, they position it to be a secret to the common person. So I don't know how to describe what this thing is with me, but that's my experience. That's what I'm trying to do.
Thank you for that, Bart. I think that's helpful to think about too. And you're right, kind of what you were saying about some of the laws that have been implemented. And we can also discuss later in the presentation as well. I don't know if folks have really been following what's been going on in Georgia around some of the voter suppression, and that's not just happening there, it's happening in a lot of states where, folks are reacting to the fact that people are actually using their rights, right? And so, their right to have their voices heard, and you're right about the laws around people assembling. All of that it's unconstitutional. It's really a reaction to the fact that organizing works, and people are upset about that. So thank you for sharing. And I know that there were some other folks too that had mentioned interest in law or criminal justice. Would love to hear, what has motivated you all to be to want to be in those spaces. And yeah, again, the questions are in the chat, but have there been a moment where you have confronted power or you wanted to confront power? And what are some things that you guys would be interested in seeing different here in New York City or otherwise.
Hi, my name is Imani Scott, and I'm one of those, I'm majoring in criminal justice, looking to go in, well, furthering my career into law enforcement eventually. One thing I have seen, especially with me really wanting to get into law enforcement, is the negativity towards law enforcement, obviously, because of everything that's gone down recently and in the past year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And one of the changes that I'm trying to make would be more so of an individual rather than a change towards like to help everybody, where I'm trying to help people to know like law enforcement in a whole is not bad. As the good and bad comes with every occupation, and I just want to make the change as to show people like like there's good and bad into everything, and to try and change the subjective of law enforcement, and to so people can see more of a companion more so than an enemy. So that's my footprint that I would like to leave.
Thanks for sharing, Imani. I think that's helpful too, right? Because I think there is a tension, especially with what you brought up right now in terms of law enforcement, right? People want to feel safe, but they also don't want to feel that they're being attacked in their own community. So, yeah, I think that's great that you're looking into that, and I think that representation is important, and community policing, having those relationships within the community, like Bart was saying, is important, because you can't be policing a community if you don't know the people, if you're not engaging with the people and seeing them as humans. So that's really important too. Other folks that want to get in on those two questions before we move on?
I remember working in middle school and having the council member for that neighborhood. He was very involved with what was happening in the middle school and very much involved with what was going on in the neighborhood, and used the middle school kind of like as his location, like his office, to have people come to and speak to him about what was going on. But I kind of agree with Bart in the sense that a lot of community people tend to come out like a month or 2 months prior to their election to speak up about what's going on, and want to make themselves seen and heard. And then after that, it's like once they're in office, they kind of disappear. So it's my question is, how do we get our community people to look at the entire community, not just those parts or aspects that they feel is, more important or more affluent than others? Because I don't think it's fair that, you only look at 2 blocks because those are the 2 blocks that always show up to events, and then you leave the other 150 without mention. That's, again, one day I was outside, I had a friend who recently told me, he said he was talking about how we need to get our community back together, and a police officer said to him, "This is not a community, it's just an area that people live in. There's no community here." And I was like, wow, that's a very powerful statement, especially since that police officer doesn't even live here. He doesn't live in my community. So for somebody to say that this is not a community, that's not even from my own community, to me, that just spoke volumes.
I think that's so interesting, right? Because, that raises the question, well then, what is a community, right? And I think one thing that, I'll be transparent, for myself, not being from New York, I did notice coming here, originally from Cincinnati, Ohio, which is a Midwestern city. So, we relate heavily to each other, and, New York can sometimes feel like that. And I think that if you're not from the community that you're in, which there's so many communities in the city, it can feel like that. And how is it perceived? Which brings me back to, Imani's point about law enforcement. If they're not from that community, it's easy for them to see things that way or not understand all of the dynamics that are at play there. So absolutely, I think that's an ongoing question, and just like something that we should pay attention to. And I think it comes up also in organizing, right? If the people in that place don't relate to each other, then, how does that play out? And how does that make it a weaker place? I'm not saying specifically for you, for instance, but I'm just saying in general. The community is less powerful if people don't relate to each other, if they don't know each other. And so thank you for sharing that, by the way. Anything else before we move on those two questions? I want to give people space to respond. Okay, great. So we'll move now into a little bit about who we are. Thank you guys for sharing. And if anything comes up in the meantime, feel free to drop it in the chat or just jump in and interrupt me. We want to hear you guys comment. So Greg, are you going to share or do you want me to share? Okay, great. So yeah, as I mentioned before, we are Community Voices Heard. And we were actually founded back in 1994. So this is, wow, I guess this is our 27th year being an organization. I think that's significant as well because we were actually founded as an organizing institution or organization, which is unique in a lot of ways because one, a lot of nonprofits, they may have an organizing aspect, but they also do some type of direct service or they do advocacy. But we were born and continue to be an organizing pretty much only institution. And I'll get into a little bit of what that means. But in any case, we were founded in 1994 by a few women of color that were organizing around what was called at the time the WEP program, which stood for Work Experience Program, that required a lot of women of color, especially single mothers and Black women, to work for their benefits. So basically work for your welfare kind of program. And these women said, nope, this isn't what we want. And they organized, they formed Community Voices Heard. They talked to other people that were in the program and they were instrumental in getting that program shut down. And so since then, we've branched out into a lot of other issues, housing being a big one that we work on. A lot of our members live in public housing. If you guys are familiar with the New York City Housing Authority or NYCHA, I'm sure you've seen at least one or two headlines if you live in the city about what's been going on there. And we can talk a little bit about those campaigns, but don't want to get too much in the weeds too early. Greg, can you go to the next slide? I don't know what's on the next slide. Okay, yeah, there we go. So yeah, so we actually since then have branched out. So we have a number of different issues that we've worked on, housing being a big one, but also criminal justice reform. We're worked on Ban the Box in Westchester, as well as healthcare and jobs. And so we are one of the largest Black-led grassroots organizing institutions in the state. And I think what also makes us unique is that we're member-led. And so what that means is that people that are members of Community Voices Heard actually shape the things that we work on. They decide, they shape the campaigns, and we really invest in our members to become better leaders in the community, but just better leaders in general, able to think and analyze things that go on in our city and in our state, and really across the world as it relates to our lives. And so really looking to transform New York State through leadership development, policy changes, and really getting folks engaged in new ways of direct democracy, which is, having people be able to say, hey, we don't like this, we want to change this, and how we get more voices into that conversation rather than just the echo chamber of small or elite folks that are already in power. Next slide, please. So this is just a little bit about where we organize. So we started in New York City. And like I said, since then we've branched out. We're in Westchester. We've got an office in Yonkers, as well as Dutchess and Orange County. So a little bit about our model of organizing. So as I mentioned before, we really our main focus is developing leadership, right? So I think where I've seen a lot of organizing go wrong is, you get people really excited around some issue. Maybe you get a win, or maybe you get close to a win, and then it kind of all falls apart because one leader steps away, or they need to, move in a different direction. But really, where we try to avoid that is we invest in people. We look to develop leadership, identify leaders, and help people to move into that space so that campaigns can be sustained over a number of weeks, months, or years. Sometimes it takes to get these wins. And so really saying, okay, how can we keep this going, because we've invested in people and they have now the ability to make that analysis, to think about ways to keep, to escalate in a campaign or to take it to the next level. And that's really what our main focus is. So really getting folks to participate in the policy making process, and get a win that can actually change people's lives, and through the creating a more fair and equitable state and city that we live in. So I touched on again, that's how we started, is just a couple women that decided that they wanted to make a change. And really, as I mentioned before, the direct democracy piece, right? So these women created an organization for themselves, run by themselves. And so I think, again, part of what makes us unique is, you see a lot of nonprofits that are doing great work, but members and the people that are really most affected aren't necessarily in the driver's seat pushing for the things that they want to work on, the things that they want to see. And so we really try to make sure that members are at the heart of what we're doing, and we're really investing in their ability to continue to lead. Next slide, please, Greg. So how do we do all of this? We organize, and what that means is we actually have a relational model of organizing, meaning that we the core of what we do is around what we call a one-to-one meeting. And so that's basically sitting down with somebody face to face saying, I'm interested in getting to know you deeper, and I want to know what really motivates you. So trying to understand what moves that person, and we call that self-interest. And I know Greg will get into that a little bit when he speaks as well. And so relating to folks, hearing people's stories, really listening to what people are saying, to understand, okay, people are complicated, right? And so one of the parts of this work that I really enjoy is to hear the complexities of people and to see, okay, what is really going to motivate this person to want to work on something that's that they want to see changed in their community, or something that's really impacting them and their family, and they want to see get better or improve. And so through building those relationships, actually helping those people to think about their relationships, right? So for example, I may have a member and they're living in a New York City Housing Authority building and they know people on the floor above them, people on the floor below them. How can I get them to think about, okay, you have an issue with your apartment. Probably some of the people that you know have that same issue. So helping them to think through their own relationships and connecting with those people that also share that same self-interest, that share that same concern that, you know, we have an issue in our apartments that we want to see change. So how can we leverage the relationships that we already have or get into new ones to start to see a change in that issue that we're trying to move. So that's what we mean when we say relational organizing, is really helping. So we relate to people and we help people relate to themselves and to others in a way that can build, I guess I could say, a network that can actually move that issue. And we call that power, right? Building power. And at Community Voices Heard, we say power is organized people and organized money. So if you have people that are organized around an issue, if you have enough people, then you have enough power to change whatever it is that you're trying to get done. So I know that, I think it was Bart that was saying earlier about people trying to keep people from gathering, because I think we're starting to see in our country that people, and this isn't just something that's happened recently. We know, civil rights movement, for those of you that have that background and know about what went on. We've been doing this for years. People that have fought for social, racial justice, and even before that, I mean, we have a long history of gathering people and seeing things shift. And I think one of the challenges in organizing that I've seen is just how much we as a culture, I think in the US, have shifted to a culture of insulation and being isolated and individualistic. And it's all about just me and the people that I care about in this small circle. And I think that has been a challenge that we've had to overcome with organizing and saying, hey, I mean, that's one way to live, but it's not a very powerful way to live if you really want to see things move in the direction that you want to see them move, because power is around people that are moving in the same direction, that have the same desire, and are saying the same thing with one voice. And obviously, money plays a big role in our society. So organized money is powerful too. And I think we can see a lot of examples of that, especially when I think about the housing work that we're doing in New York City, and how hard it is to move it, because there's so much money that goes into real estate. I mean, all you have to do is step outside of your apartment to see that. And so pushing a lot of those, the Real Estate Board of New York is probably one of the most powerful institutions in the country, because they have so much money flowing that it's like, if they want something to happen, it's probably going to happen unless we get a lot of people and some organized money of our own to say, we've got some folks that also, want to see affordable housing continue in New York City, so that people of different economic backgrounds can continue to live here. And it doesn't turn into kind of a San Francisco situation where you just have so much unaffordability. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about New York too, is that people of all different kind of backgrounds are able to live here. So that's how we organize. We relate to people, we build power through those relationships, and we try to move people around their self-interest and what's important to them. And so before I pass it on to Greg, I just want to kind of pause there and see if there's any questions or just general reactions to what I've said so far. I know that was a lot.
Perhaps I'll chime in. I'm just thinking what you said is like organizing and the financial aspect of it. Generally, people who get what they want push through quickly have a ton of money, it seems, to say, hey, this is what I like. And all of a sudden it's a thing popping up. It's an eyesore or whatever it is, it's a building, whatever it is. They have a tendency to get it and get it quick. Whereas if I wanted to see change, I have to go through 90 steps, you know, something as simple as, I don't know, I don't know. Just I watched the neighborhoods over the years. I was just telling a friend of mine, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, and I remember before the 77 blackout and after the 77 blackout, we were having the debate about why the neighborhood in Brownsville got burnt out. And she was like, well, you know, they're tearing up their own neighborhood. I said, yeah, but they were, you know, there's other things behind why the neighborhood got torn up, but she won't understand it. And we both understand that we don't understand. I understand why she's saying what she's saying, but she understands that she doesn't know the full scope of why it got that way. So it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's everything. I've watched it. I'm 50 now, and I've watched it from the time I was so young until from then till now. It's a lot.
Yeah. And I mean, thank you for sharing that. And I mean, even with me being from Cincinnati, we had, you know, riots here where people, you know, if you just look at it, you say, oh, these people are tearing up their own neighborhood. But no, you don't understand the complexities of everything that went into that and the anger that the people had and everything that, you know, causes people to react, right? And that's part of organizing too, is trying to get a reaction, because a lot of times people are just, you know, if you just ignore people and keep ignoring people and keep abusing people, people are eventually going to react to that. And I think, you know, we're seeing a lot of reaction right now, you know, a lot of reaction around, you know, the police killings that have gone on, a lot of reaction to, you know, the housing shortage, you know, especially that has been, you know, there's reactions to COVID. So, you know, thank you for sharing that, Bart. I think that's...
And I'm sorry, just another thing just came to me just now.
Yeah.
I was thinking about how you said the COVID reaction. So last year when they realized they had to, okay, we're going to give people who lost their jobs because they're not going to work, we're going to give them a little funding. They said they wanted to do something about rents, but they didn't. It has to go from top to bottom. So if you tell the people don't pay your rent, now fund the landlords, because I'm not pro landlord or pro tenant. I'm pro fairness. So if you fund the tenant, but you tell them don't pay their rent, and then you don't fund the landlord, and you're not telling the banks not to bother them, there was no cover up for the trickle down. They sure enough gave the big businesses all the money first. They dropped a bunch of loot on them, but didn't trickle it down all the way through the entire structure of this United States. They just dropped it up here and dropped it down here, and then they left everybody in the middle to be confused to what to do. So that's another component that's kind of silly to me. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. Other reactions or comments?
I just wanted to ask Velita, how do you approach individuals who might already feel like this is a lost cause, or might already feel like this isn't something that, you know, organizing involves a lot of participation, but I'm sure you have to do a lot of convincing that it's worthwhile work. I think a lot of people might say this is never going to change. What's the difference? So how do you approach folks like that, and what do you tell them to help, you know, encourage them to join the work?
Yeah, thanks, Helen. I think that's such a good point, right? Because like, I think as an organizer, you have to come to this work with a clarity around what you're trying to get done, and just a clear way of communicating that to people. And like, I would say first off, like, one clarity that I have around just any kind of social justice work that you're trying to do in general is that what's absolutely certain is that if we do nothing, it will get worse. So I think that is like a very usually like one of the first things I tell people is like, okay, so, you know, you've been having this issue. It's definitely getting worse, like, or it'll be the exact same. It'll either get worse or it's going to be the same. So I think getting people to realize, okay, so something does need to happen. And if we don't act, then we're going to be exactly where we are right now. And then the other thing I think about is just helping people to think about, don't think about, like, I think there's things that people just look at and it's like, okay, racism, that's a problem. That is like way bigger than any of us, right? But if we think about it and we break it down, okay, into like what we call in organizing an issue cut, which is something that's actionable, that we could actually win, right? So, okay, set racism to the side. Yes, it's a problem and it continues to be one. But what if we just look at discrimination for voters in New York City? Then that's something that we maybe actually be able to break down and get a win on, if that makes sense. Because I think what you're saying is so true, Helen. Like, people like, oh man, racism, can't solve that in my lifetime, which is true. But you may be able to see like some progress, right? I think, you know, especially when we think about the civil rights movement, you know, it was way worse then, you know, and those people probably felt the same way. And yet look at the progress that they were able to make. And so I think that we have to have that same approach of saying, hey, okay, this is what we can get done in this amount of time, and really building up those smaller wins to get to the bigger win, right? If we think about, you know, the Civil Rights Act, they had to do a lot of steps just to get to that point, right? And so helping people to think, okay, what can we win this month? Okay, great. What can we win this year? Okay, great. What can we win in the next 5 years? And really breaking it down so that people can see, okay, we can make some progress. It may not be everything that we want tomorrow, but we can see some change in a reasonable amount of time.
This question also brings up some of the reasons I'm really proud to be a part of Community Voices Heard and organizing in general. You know, the relational model that we use starts at your own experiences and connects you with folks you know on a deeper level. And there's an opportunity there to identify something you can build power to change, even as that you're like looking at huge problems that are like any one of us individually cannot confront and change. We don't each individually have the power to make those changes. However, in a collective, in a union of neighbors, like Community Voices Heard, we do experience creating change. Is it all right to go to the next slide? I'll give a couple examples, or at least images of our members. Velita, is that right?
Yeah, take it away.
Right. So let's see if I can actually make it change. Stuck, it looks like. There we go. So what we're seeing here are groups of our members gathered for various different reasons, but some of these meetings, let me back up. All of these members start in one-to-one conversations like Velita was talking about, and then start branching into little groups of people they know and connecting around a specific issue that you want to make a change on, or learning more about too, because local politicians talk about something in an election year, but what are they doing the rest of the time? So neighbors come together and dig into that. And so when we are coming together, we do form events and actions. We've held town halls with New York senators, as we can see here with Senator Schumer and with Senator Gillibrand. We've connected many of our members through an effort called Follow Black Women that started with a survey of 5,000 Black women in New York State. And that has been a particularly powerful platform given our history and our membership, looking at where our communities already have some visions of changes we need. And that is where our relationship to Senator Schumer has really grown a little bit more. And some of the things that our members have worked on in the past include also just the little things at a local level. And we were going to get into a little bit of that example in a moment, but I'm not sure if now's the moment. I can pass it back to you, Velita. But I did want to speak just briefly here about how I'm proud to be part of Community Voices Heard, in part because we don't look at changing the massive problems that that will be with us from generations, but we look at what we can change and grow incrementally, if that makes sense. Velita, I'll pass it back to you if you wanted to take more questions.
You mean on which piece?
And what is community organizing?
Yeah, I mean, if there are others, otherwise we can move on.
Okay. Good deal. Sounds like we're good to switch then and dig a little bit deeper into, in particular, power and self-interest. Something Velita and I were thinking about and curious about is hearing a little bit more from each of you about changes you want to see happen, and also relationships you think you might need. Before we get into that, do you want to touch base about power? Velita mentioned that for Community Voices Heard, it is the ability to make change, the ability to act, and that takes organized people and organized money. And an experience that I wanted to bring up that was kind of an introduction to me for organizing, community organizing, was when, I guess this was, I'm going to date myself a moment here, about 13 years ago, my partner and I experienced the immigration system on a personal level. She moved and changed jobs. Her visa was no longer valid, and she went through 2 lawyers that gave bad advice about it. And we ended up in a situation where she was on the other side of the border trying to get back into the United States and was not allowed, not given permission. So that was a moment of crisis in my family where we were introduced to organizers who were connecting people with similar situations and problems. And we ended up learning ultimately from student organizers, students who were working to create safer spaces for undocumented families in schools. And that was my introduction to this work. I was working as a teacher at the time and started volunteering, getting to know more people with similar situations. Our situation, we learned quickly, was fairly easily solved in my family, but we learned that the problem was much more global, and we could take smaller action steps with others we were getting to know, and work towards the bigger change that we still hope is on its way in terms of immigration justice. Similarly, when we're talking about housing, my family went through a leak that lasted 6 years in our apartment, and our landlord told us stories about what it was about. And we knew it wasn't true, that it wasn't our neighbor upstairs. And 6 years after dealing with that, and complaining, I finally found a broken pipe in the wall. And I think if we had been at the time, if we had been connecting with our neighbors in a more powerful way and connecting with other tenants around the city, I think we may have gotten to that change quicker. Lessons learned, even on a personal basis. So I am curious, we do come into this talking about self-interest. Just what are some quick other words that you think of when you hear self-interest? When you think of self-interest, what do you think of?
Perhaps like self-care, I guess. And it doesn't mean that it's just you. Self-interest, when you take care of yourself, the people in your immediate circle and in the circle out of that are also included in it.
Nice. Interesting. Yeah, I see in the chat something that impacts me, my family, and community. Francis, I think you were reading something about the motto of Community Voices Heard. We talk about fighting for ourselves, for our family, and our community. Great to see.
I mean, when I think about self-interest, self automatically is talking about yourself, and interest is what's important to you. So, but then if you're looking holistically, you can't be that selfish person who's always just about me. Like whatever I'm interested in, I have to think about those that are around me, because just because I like it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to like it. I live in a community where, yes, I'm living in low income housing, and I can look out and I can see people living in private houses. Yet the people in the private houses have a self-interest of having their own driveway. Yet you're not looking at, okay, by you breaking down your sidewalk to create a driveway, you're now limiting the rest of the people that live here, that drive a car on a daily basis, to be able to park their car because you've now taken away a parking spot. So as a community member, I'm looking at you like you're really, really selfish, because you're not looking at the self-interest of the entire community, of everybody who's living here, and people who have lived here a lot longer than you, as to how is me breaking, this little 6 feet of space going to impact everyone else.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you're bringing up selfishness. We want to make a clear distinction between self-interest and selfishness. Selfishness is something that maybe comes from the idea that I need to get for myself, regardless the impact on others. And that does have an isolating effect. Whereas with self-interest, like what Bart is describing, self-interest connects us. It's a way of being honest that if what I want hurts my neighbors and ends up isolating me, then that's not actually good for me either. Like if we're isolated, we're going to be more easily manipulated and hurt in the long run. So there is that distinction between selfishness and self-interest, where self-interest is being honest about our needs and connecting with our neighbors in a sustaining way. That so if if there's a breaking down between neighbors, that's not self-interest that we're working from and building. There's also a distinction of selflessness. There are people who go into public life and describe everyone else's issues and problems and fail to mention how it is connected to their own survival and thriving. Selflessness also is not sustainable in our model, in the way we organize. We're looking at how we can be, and again, selflessness can isolate us. So when we're organizing, building teams, it does start with getting to know people on a deeper level. Like Velita said, getting to know people's motivations, people's the things that make people tick and move us to take action, to create change that we might want to see. It's about connecting and building power as a team. I do want to mention real quick, I see in the chat from Svetlana, we're going to put our contact information here at the end. If you would, please reach out directly after the presentation here and I can introduce you to someone working on immigration a little bit more. That's
Thank you.
acceptable. Before we conclude, I'd love to hear a little bit more about change you want to see for yourself, your family, and your community. What are some examples you have of your self-interest for taking action in public and in your neighborhood, in Kingsborough?
It's a little tough one to say because I've never actually been to the campus. I've been around the campus, and the neighborhood where I'm at, it's oddly, it's the block. I live in Mill Basin, and the block they live on is pretty mixed. It's a little bit of everybody, literally. But if you cross Flatbush Avenue, it's they are unto themselves, meaning there's an element that they don't want, so to say. And I can imagine they're probably still redlining over there. And I say that to say, my fiance's goddaughter had a problem on the block, and I didn't go to start a fight. I went to go let them know, when you see her, know that I'm her backup. Know that I won't let anything happen to her. Know that she's allowed to go wherever she wants. You mind yourself and be as respectful as you'd like everybody else to be. But when I walked onto the block, I was met with what were two blockades. It was a principal of a school and one of her neighbors. They came between me and the people, and I just was there to support this teenager who was being yelled at by a grown man, probably in his 30s or 40s, because he was doing something wrong. He was backing up, going backwards down the block in the car. So I noticed that when I was walking over there, as I walked through the blocks, people look at me like, well, what's he doing here? So I would like for people in this neighborhood to understand that anybody who could afford to live somewhere, if you could buy a house, rent a house, whatever it is, you belong there. I tell my own kids, and they're in Colorado right now, which you can imagine how lacking in diversity they have there. I tell them, I don't care where you go, what campus you go on, what store you walk in, wherever you go, walk in there like you own it. And I say that to give them the ultimate confidence. And even if they might knock it down a peg or two, just know that you went there for a purpose, and don't let anybody else, make you think otherwise. go take care of your purpose, and then move on and act like you didn't even see them. And if you have to go back, they go back there again. You know, I'm not sure if you're, and this is my third time bringing it up to one of my professors or anybody from involved with Kingsborough, but I moved out to Colorado for about 10 months, and I needed a car because the job I had meant I had to drive to Boulder in wee hours of the morning. There's no transportation. So I decided to get personalized plates. I don't know how familiar you are with In the Heat of the Night of Sidney Poitier, the movie, but his name was Mr. Tibbs. So I got my license plate to say Mr. Tibbs. It's like, don't question why I'm here. I know why I'm here. You know, do you know why you're here?
It sounds, I mean, you're describing the legacy of redlining in New York City and the effects of racialization, racism, and how it plays out in the street and in stores. And one of the things that I kind of heard in your story is that there's a desire there for communication or understanding that you belong.
Yeah.
And that you are a part of the community.
Absolutely.
And so that's a change that you're seeking to have recognition, to to also be connected in a way that lets you be seen more fully for who you are. And I think that's what organizing is about, you know, the actions people take, the power building we do is about getting recognition. And one of the places to start, I guess you're talking about the relationship with your council member earlier. You know, getting to know some neighbors and connecting about what issue, what thing you might bring to them might be a starting place. Or getting a meeting with your current council member, not just the candidate, right? But after they're in office, and that's something that Community Voices Heard does. I'm seeing that we're short on time. But that does bring up, you know, thinking about what relationships you need, you could develop more in your community in order to bring them into a team that is gaining recognition and building towards the change you want to see. Thinking about and reflecting on our self-interest and connecting those things is what Community Voices Heard does. I'd like to put up on the screen our contact information for, and I'm also seeing in the chat that we have a survey here to follow up. And before we end, yeah, maybe we could go through do we still have time for the Polo Grounds example? One example, on last example of ways our members are building power or have in the past?
Sure, we have a couple of minutes. It's up to you.
Yeah, you can show the video and then I can talk about it briefly.
Okay, great. Let's see, share the screen. And I think I did not share the sound, so here we go, starting again.
It's cell phone video of a rally Tuesday morning, not outside 250 Broadway, but inside.
I'm saying in a nice way, can't stay here.
This is an emergency. Dozens of NYCHA tenant residents residents, members of a group called Community Voices Heard, say they're sick of feeling ignored. So they decided to go straight to the top on the 12th floor where they say NYCHA management have offices.
What do we want? Accountability. When do we want it? Now.
These residents demanded a meeting with the NYCHA general manager, Vito Musticello, but they say they were turned away.
Why are you here? Because NYCHA has refused to make necessary repairs that needs to be done.
Many of them holding pictures of their bathrooms and living rooms. Barbara Williams says she's had several meetings with NYCHA management for months now and nothing has happened. Williams lives at the Polo Grounds in Harlem.
They have not kept their promise. We are tired of talking. We want action.
It's about time, right? These residents are from all across the city, Coney Island, Staten Island, Manhattan, the Bronx, Brooklyn, and they have the same message. They want their voices to be heard.
If the mayor is watching, Mr. Mayor, I understand you're running for president, but we need you in New York.
And NYCHA tells us, quote, we apologize to our residents for the delay, but NYCHA will complete outstanding repairs as quickly as possible. The authority will continue to meet with Community Voices Heard and resident leadership as we work to address the needs of Polo Grounds towers.
What do we want? Accountability. When do we want it?
Now. In Lower Manhattan, Monica Morales, Pix 11 News.
Okay, Valeta, are you there? Yeah.
Yep. So just in the interest of time, there's our contact info. And I'll just say about what you just saw, that's just one example of an action. And really, I mean, if you look at the news clip, it looks like there was a lot of us, but there's only like 30 people. And so really, it doesn't take much to get a reaction. So when we talk about organizing, you have to have a clear demand. And so our demand was just, do the repairs in Polo Grounds, simple. And so we got about 30 of our members together and we went to the NYCHA headquarters. And as you can see, there was a reaction from NYCHA and they put out that statement, which, was pretty much blah, but they did do the repairs. They started what we call a repair blitz in the development, and a lot of residents were able to get their repairs as a result of that action. So really thinking about, the crazy part about it is people, when you confront people that are in power, they get scared easily. You don't need hundreds of thousands of people. I think that's another thing to Helen's point earlier that feels daunting to people about organizing, but really especially if it's something local, like a sidewalk or fixing your street, or if you want maybe you want an escalator at your metro station, something like that, you can really do this with I would say as little as 15 to maybe 75 people and really see an impact. And so, we've done actions smaller than that. We've done actions much bigger than that. It really just depends on what you're asking for. And so would love for you guys to follow up with us. Like I said, that's our contact info. Just shoot us an email. We'll make sure Helen has our contact information as well. And so we really appreciate you guys for having us. Again, I know we're short on time, so if there's any questions that pop up, again, emails, you can always get us on email, and we will be quick to respond to you all. And if you want to get involved with us, would love it as well. Just shoot us an email and we'll plug you right in.
Great. Thank you so much, Velita. Thank you so much, Greg. And thank you to all of our attendees, all of our participants. As I mentioned, there are problems out there, but there are also lots of solutions, and Community Voices Heard are one of those stops where you can make to help create some change. So if you're looking to make a difference, then this is an organization where you can start. My colleague Francis also put a feedback survey in the chat. So if you could take a minute, it won't take longer than a minute or two, just to give us your feedback on today's event and future events that we have coming up. And Francis is also sharing an event we have coming up next week about familiarizing yourselves, because another part of community action is understanding the role that your elected officials play. So we've got the New York State primaries coming up this summer. We've got the mayoral race in November. So, you know, this is crucial. You know, you will see the changes of these candidates in your city. So we really want to make sure that you familiarize yourself with taking political action and participating that way. So if you are, please join us on that day. And if you have any questions, I'll put my contact information in the chat as well, so you have it. But once again, thank you so much to Velita and to Greg and for all of their work and all of their colleagues and all of their folks on the ground doing this important work to make changes. You know, you might not even know. They might have fought for something that changed in your own community. So you can read up and see some of the things that they helped advocate for. So thanks again so much to all of you, and we hope to see you at some of our upcoming events.
Thank you all.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Take care.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks, Velita.